What's up, everybody? Arrg the Pirate here, and today we're going to be discussing the positioning, rotation, and kind of guide to the offlane. Now, in my opinion, the offlane can be one of the hardest positions to play, and it really changes the entire team's composition depending on the hero that's picked to play that offlane role. Now, there are several heroes that can do well in the offlane. First, you have assassins, then you have frontline fighters, next you have lane pushing heroes, you have melee carries that can play offlane, and lastly we have this Zinx hero that's kind of a frontline ranged, can't be killed hero that kind of hasn't had enough time to really find her place within Paragon. But there are just a massive amount of heroes that can play in the offlane and do very successfully. Alright, let's start out by kind of talking about the fundamentals and the kind of basic things of the offlane. Now, this jungle camp that's outside of the fog wall and the one that's just inside of the fog wall, I consider these both the jungler and the offlaner's camps. Now, I don't tend to go after those camps. I like staying in lane, but if you would like to get a little more CXP, those camps you can take. If the jungler is doing their job well, they will have plenty to do without worrying about those camps. Next, ward placement. Now, wards are typically placed by the enemy team just on the other side of this fog wall, and as the offlaner, you should really pick up wards. Of course, this is going to change in version 42, but right now, picking up wards, putting a ward down, and dewarding doesn't only help you, but it helps your jungler, because your jungler cannot get a successful gank if the enemy has vision on them. Another good key point about the offlaner is securing the gold buff from the enemy team. Now, not all heroes can make that jump. There are a handful that can, and every odd minute after the 3-minute mark, you should try to get that gold buff, but do not sacrifice yourself to ensure that you get that gold buff. 300 CXP is a help to you, and it hurts the enemy team, but it is not worth dying for. Now, if you are playing a non-lane pushing hero, you have to worry about being able to rotate. Now, Fang is not the best lane pushing hero. He does a lot better as being kind of a frontline fighter, and you want to be able to have the freedom to rotate. Now, to be able to rotate, you need to do what is called setting your lane. Now, this is when you go and kill the ranged minions of a wave. This will allow your lane to stack up with your minions, and they will naturally push against the enemy lanes, because you will have a lot more minions in your wave than their wave, and having several ranged minions allows your lane to do just tons of damage and really march on its own. By setting a lane close to your towers, it gives you several minutes to where you can freely rotate as long as their team isn't playing too aggressive. Now, I picked up purple buff, and if you see, I come over here and they have a 4-man rotation to clean up this wave that I have. Of course, this is a bot game and it doesn't typically work like that. But by having 4 people in a lane to deal with this massive wave, this will allow the other heroes on my team to push their lanes. But since we did have such a massive rotation from the enemy team, that's going to tell me I'm going to have to go back to my lane and deal with it. So I'm going to let the enemy wave get closer to my inhib or my tower, and then set it again and rotate. This really just turns into a big match of tug of war. Now, if you don't set your lane, or if you don't keep eyes on that lane, it will push against you eventually, and you will end up losing a tower. The problem with setting a lane is when it does actually make it to the enemy tower, the tower will be able to take out those minions faster than they're going to spawn in, unless it is just a massive wave and you're in that later game. Now, if you are in the mid or early-ish game, the minion waves are not near as big, so the time that it takes them to clear out the enemy wave and push is much shorter. So you have less time to rotate. You actually have more time to rotate once you set a lane in the later games when the waves are huge. This is key for a rotating offlaner. Alright, now let's get back into that Wukong video or that Wukong match, and we'll kind of talk about a lane pushing hero. Now here I am as Wukong in this off lane, and I'm going against this Yin and Fei still, and my tower is about to go down. Now I have hit 5, so I am able to put a little more pressure on Yin and Fei's, but I was forced out of lane, and so they are a fairly high level as well. Now, this tower is going to go down. I cannot help but, I did everything I could, but that tower went down, and that's fine. My farm starts right now. So at 7 minutes in, or 7 minutes and 50 seconds into this match, I'm going to now be able to farm. But there is a fairly decent wave going to come into this tier 2 tower, and I do need some rotation. Luckily, FaZe and Yin decided to back off. They did get a little bit of damage on this tower, but that is okay. I'm going to start farming and putting pressure on this lane. Now, as a lane pushing hero, I really don't need to rotate for team fights. Of course, if there is a big team fight and I'm close, I can rotate to assist. But if a team fight is happening, I am better served by putting pressure on a lane. So that means it might be a 5v4 engagement, but they're going to lose a tower for that team fight. So even if they do take out a couple of my teammates, they're losing towers and objectives. And as we all know, objectives win Paragon, not kills. So by sacrificing a teammate in a team fight, we're going to ensure that we're at least going to get towers, or we're going to have successful, lane push when that team fight is going on. Now, here a few minutes later, Yin was a little out of position, and me and Kalari were really able to, or I got a good bit of damage on Yin. She started heading back, and sure enough, Kalari was there to wrap up that kill. So FaZe is going to get out. She can't compete against us, and we're actually going to down their tower here at 11 minutes. Now, I have said many times, and I made that special video about how I think Wukong's just a little overpowered on structure damage, but that's really beside the point. I am a lane pushing hero, so I'm going to constantly keep up pressure. Now right here, I've downed this tower. I go ahead and take these minions out, get my minions pushing a little bit further, and this is the time for me to rotate. Now, my rotation is a little bit different than someone that's trying to be a frontline fighter. My rotation is all about farm. If I can get a kill, I will try, but I am not searching for kills. I'm searching for enemy green buffs, enemy jungle. I'm searching for really just anything that I can take away from the enemy while also, contributing to my farm. Now that Kalari, I saw she was going to go in on a few of my teammates. I went ahead, headed down there. I wanted to get her out and just kind of knock her away, keep her from really putting any damage on anybody. But now I'm going to head back to my lane, go ahead and and get my farm, maybe pick up those jungle camps, just really keep the pressure up in lane. By keeping the pressure up in lane as this lane pushing hero, this is forcing the enemy team to deal with me. Now they could put a hero that, like a caster, on this lane, and that would really hurt me from being able to get farm, but at the same time, that's going to force Yin and FaZe to rotate to that mid lane, and then they're going to be dealing with a caster, and a caster is able to do a much better job at poke damage. Well, that's going to kind of wrap it up for this off-lane positioning and guide video. The big key points to note is never die for your tier 1. Your tier 1 is designed to go down. This opens up your ability to farm when it does go down. And pick what hero you want to play. Do you want to be a frontline hero, or do you want to be a lane pusher? If you want to be a frontline hero, you need to set your lane and then rotate. If you rotate before setting a lane, you will not be able to rotate for very long without having to go and deal with your lane. Also, getting those wards down and keeping vision on where the enemy is, and knowing if they're pushing your lane or if your lane is pushing against you. One thing about setting lanes is it kind of, once a huge wave goes to the enemy team, they go, oh man, I should set this lane. So they will end up setting their lane and it will push against you, and you'll have to deal with a massive wave. And if you don't, it will take down your tower. So if you're a frontline fighter, you need to set lanes, rotate, but keep vision on your lane. If you're a lane pusher, you don't need to rotate as much. The only time you really rotate is when you're pushed up so far and the enemies start rotating towards you, then run away, and that's your time to secure raptors, jungle camps, maybe prime, any kind of objective. I also like to go for the green buff if I can, but invading the enemy jungle when you're pushing the off lane is not always the easiest thing to do because they are still very close to you. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I really hope this video helped kind of give you an idea of just exactly how the off lanes positioning and how to set lanes and everything like that. And if it did help, show me some love. Leave me a comment. Think about subscribing. And as always, I'll see y'all in the next video.